Welcome back to the Wedding Photo Hangover podcast, the finest phototainment in the world. We are an irreverent look at photography. This podcast, like aspirin, will help you recover from your wedding hangover. And this week, we're going to help out a bit more than usual because Dustin's not here with me, but I have somebody who's much more intelligent and much better at business. Brandon Wong from the Photobooth Supply Company. How are you doing, Brandon?
What's going on, Steve? I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, I'm so excited to have you on. We met about a year ago at Imaging USA, and I just remember Dustin and I were like running all around trying to get like interviews with a bunch of different people at like vendor booths and like people who were there speaking and stuff. And I had just completely like run my voice like completely ragged. And then we went up to you, and I'm just tired, and you just like within seconds of like starting to talk to us, you're like, hey, if we're gonna do this, do you guys want to sit down and like talk and have a seat? And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is the nicest person I've ever met in my entire life.
And then we had a little kumbaya moment after that. We sat in a little circle, and it was probably the most memorable podcast I remember ever having, especially the location and the environment. So yeah, that was a really unique time for me too, and I really appreciate we had that. Thanks for coming up to me and kind of surprising me there. That was really fun.
Well, I mean, we felt like we had to talk to you guys because you guys have like this whole setup when you go to conferences and stuff. You guys all wear like coordinated like outfits and stuff, and like it looks like it's eye-catching, and it kind of draws you in, and it's hard not to walk over and talk to you because you're like, what are these people up to? What are they doing? And then you have like the salsa booths, and like they look sci-fi. They don't look like a photo booth like how I'm familiar with seeing photo booths. I feel like I'm stepping into the future like when I get in front of one of them. So it's just kind of like this amazing feeling.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't had the opportunity to see us at a trade show, might not have that opportunity until 2022. We usually wear these like white Ghostbuster-like jumpsuits. And we thought it was like fun at first. It also makes it a little easier to go to trade shows because you just kind of put it over your clothes. So no matter how you show up to a trade show, you just kind of zip that over. And now you have this beautiful, nice branding that doesn't require a full outfit, right? So it's just a little fun thing that we had. But yeah, I'm glad that made an impression on you.
Yeah, so you can basically wear anything under those, right?
Yes, anything. It's great.
So just wanted to talk to you a little bit about like the photo booth business and stuff. I know it's probably kind of weird this year because everything with COVID and everything like that, and having a huge impact on the event industry, the photography industry, and everything. So I kind of wanted to bring you in just to kind of like talk through that kind of stuff and to kind of talk about the future of like where you guys see things going. But like first, I want to get like a little background. So like, what is it that made you want to start Photobooth Supply Company? Like, what was it that pushed you into that industry?
Yeah, so I actually started off my career as a wedding photographer when I was 19 years old. And
Wow.
I very quickly realized that wedding photography is the greatest job in the world, but it was not the perfect business.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lot of flaws in it in the sense that you had a business where you had to trade your time for money. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
show up to a wedding, then you're not getting paid. And that problem is exacerbated when your company is called your name. So Brandon Wong Photography. How am I going to make money as Brandon Wong Photography if Brandon Wong does not show up? So that already kind of was shooting myself in the foot. Another thing too is it's a really, really physically intensive job, right? We have to work our bodies tremendously. So we have a wedding hangover afterwards, right? We're doing like crazy yoga during the event. We're holding a 7,200 in one arm for 4 hours straight, and I have some like permanent damage to my body because of that, right? And I'm not old, so I was seeing like I can't imagine doing this when I'm in my 40s or 50s or let alone 60s, right? So am I just gonna be working like this for the rest of my life? And if I
Didn't say
do,
30s. Wow.
yeah, like what if something happens to me, right? do I have disability insurance,
Mhm.
stuff like that? Like, what am I gonna do for the rest of my life if I don't diversify my value to the world? Um, Another thing too that I felt like was that a lot of business owners, they get the opportunity to build a business and then sell it, right? They spent 10 years of their life creating something, creating profit from it, and they're creating something of value, that they can pass on to another person to continue that legacy and hopefully get rich and retire. We can't do that as wedding photographers either. Simply mostly because you're trading our time for money, and we're specifically selling ourselves. No one's gonna buy Brandon Wong photography if Brandon Wong is no longer gonna be shooting weddings there. It just doesn't make any sense. So I was thinking, how the heck am I supposed to build this business to make sure that it can make money when I'm not there? How can I build this business where it's not going to be torturing my body and like giving up my weekends? And how can I build this business where I can eventually sell it? Well, I started hiring associate photographers, and that was really difficult because you're essentially, if you want someone good, you have to pay them a pretty good chunk of change, like $1,000, $2,000, and then you have to pay for the editing. And at that point, it's still high liability. What if that person loses the wedding rings? What if that person has the memory card? What if they don't show up? What if they just miss the first kiss? There's a lot of things that could
Mhm.
happen that's liability under your brand, right? And for me, it just wasn't worth the $1,000, $2,000 I was making, with hiring an associate and managing that person. So I asked myself, how can I turn this associate photographer into a robot who shows up on time, is reliable, doesn't call out sick, won't lose the rings, and it's a photo booth, right? And our customers were asking for it. So we developed our own photo booth. And then from there, we started getting a lot of friends and industry people, asking for this, just like Dustin and other people. And then we started, hey, let's create this amazing device to help people go through some of these pain points that they have as wedding photographers, to help scale their business, to make sure they're not hurting their bodies over time, to make sure they don't trade their time for money anymore. And that was in 2013, and we've been growing ever since. I think today now we're hitting like 24, 25 employees, and the thousands of photo booths sold all across the world. So they're really exciting times.
So, do you guys sell the photo booths to other countries then as well?
Oh yeah, we've sold to almost every major country at this point, every state for sure.
Oh wow, that's crazy, man. I did not realize that you guys had gone like international with the brand. I thought it was still just like a US thing. Wow. So that's I mean you got to have support going 24/7 then to to keep up with all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What is just curious like what does support look like for you guys? Like how do you manage all that with like all these weddings going on the weekends and stuff? Like if people need help with something or if something breaks or goes wrong.
Yeah, so we sell the photo booths, and we also have a software that is tied to
Mhm.
them, right? And every
Yeah.
time the the software is really powerful because it does so many things. There's not enough time to talk about on the podcast, but it captures all the images, and it helps facilitate the sharing of them at live events. So guests can send themselves their captures via email, via text message, AirDrop, QR codes, all that crazy stuff. And then it gets uploaded to this gallery like instantaneously. So it's this whole seamless experience, of capturing pictures, creating actually leads and marketing for you, because all the people that are attending the weddings can get
Mhm.
all their images, but also in exchange, they're probably giving you their phone numbers or giving you their emails. Then you can follow up and say, hey, do you want a family session? Do you want to do a family portrait? Do you want to have a baby session coming up? Do you have your own wedding? Do you have a corporate event? And not just for photography services, but also for photo booth services too. But of course, technology is technology. Not everything works 100% of the time, although we want it to. So in those instances, we have support 7 days a week, and into the evenings as well to take care of you. So worst case scenario, call us up and we'll make sure we get it fixed.
That is amazing. I cannot even fathom the idea of having to provide support to people 7 days a week. Wow. How did you what what was like the driving force behind like I don't just want to create a business to help out like photographers. Like I want to create a business that can scale to fit people all across the US, all across the world. Um, where I might have to solve problems like how do I provide support on, a Sunday at noon or something.
Yeah, well, the demand kind of drove the requirements for the team. Initially, it was just me and my wife doing everything. We were doing the order fulfillment, we were doing the sales, we were doing the support, we were maintaining the website. And of course, when it came time to figure out, hey, you know what? We're getting a little bit too busy. I don't like working 100 hour week. It kind of went full
Yeah.
circle, right? Of like, hey, we want to build a business to scale, and now it's like, like we need to actually like have help here. So we said, okay, well, what is the task that I don't feel passionate about, and that things that Brandon Wong doesn't necessarily need to do. And the first thing there was support. I love doing support, but at the same
Mhm.
time, every hour that I spent in sales, every hour that I spent in marketing, every hour that I spent in automating parts of the business was providing more value. It's actually the first area that we started hiring for was support. And now that team has grown to 4
Mhm.
core team members today, with some people supporting them as well. So yeah, definitely not easy to try to figure out different time zones. But with being a remote company, actually at Photobooth Supply Co, we've actually had the opportunity to hire remote as well from all across the world. So people actually, even though they're working late into the evenings, maybe in their time zone, it's not that late. So yeah.
Mhm. Oh, that is amazing. I love that idea of like, hey, we're already like providing like remote services to people. Like we can hire people remote. It's such a forward thinking way to run your business as opposed to so many places I know where it's like, we're going to bring everybody into our office and we're all going to work in the same time zone. And it's like, but then how do you deal with like your client? Sorry, I that kind of stuff frustrates me. And I'm really glad to hear that you've already figured that out, solved it, and like you have like a plan going. Like that's just great. Man, it's great talking to somebody who knows what they're doing when it comes to running a business. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of crazy stuff that's been happening, and like I definitely don't think that I know everything that's occurring. I mean, you brought up
Yeah.
earlier 2020, right? So we were going into 2020 thinking that this was going to be the best year at Photobooth Supply Co. We
Hmm.
had record-breaking sales in January, and then February broke January, got even better, and then
That
March is
was
looking
the wedding
great.
hangover bump, right?
Yeah,
Because you were on our podcast.
of
Yeah.
course,
Yeah.
of
We
course.
always provide that bump.
You guys are the reason for all of our success here. Um, and then, March came around, and I remember specifically the day that everything
Hmm.
went down because I was actually supposed to fly out to Korea that night. And Korea was, if you recall, the country that was getting hit the most back then.
Yeah.
And they canceled our flight. I'm sitting here at dinner with my wife and the co-founder of the company, and we just said, "Oh my god, what's going to happen?" And then
Hmm.
sales went to zero the next week, like literally nothing. It's unprecedented at Photobooth Supply Co, where we had like no revenue coming in. So we had a lot of conversations
Wow.
about like, hey, what are we gonna do? Do we need to cut people? Do we need to cut pay? Can we even see this company surviving this? How much runway do we have? Like how much money do we have in the bank? How much money does it cost to run this? How long would that be? And there was a lot of questions about that. But ultimately, we're a team of survivors, and we also are so dedicated to our customer success. And even though a lot of them could not run events, we try to figure out ways for them to still monetize. So what we did was we actually created something called Virtual Booth, and we saw a lot of these events
Hmm.
starting to go virtual, whether it be virtual conferences, virtual galas, virtual weddings, um, or elopements with a virtual aspect to it. So we said, well, everyone's devices have a camera on it, whether it be a phone or a laptop. Why can't we just turn those into photo booths too? Why restrict it to just salsa or the photo booths that we have? So we created this virtual booth aspect, and people were taking this and running with it and making sometimes $300, $400, $500 a day with a virtual booth, not even needing to have a physical photo booth. So they could literally just sign up for a free trial on our app, which we don't restrict anything, offer it to a wedding client, make $500 by just clicking a few things, uploading their logo, and they're good to go. It was just wild. Um, so that was really successful, and that brought a lot of our photo booth owners to profitability,
Mhm.
with actually a more profit margin because they didn't even need to do prints. They didn't need to do any of that. They didn't have to go drive to the event and burn gas. It was just purely like sending a link to them, and you're losing the new technology
Wow.
behind our software. And then when events started opening back up again slowly, and we know some states did it quicker than others, we actually decided, okay, well, some of the guests might be a little apprehensive about touching the photo booth. So we created hands-free
Mhm.
mode where if somebody was in front of our photo booth, they can just wave their hands at it and it would start the countdown process and then take a picture. And then we'd also have digital props. So kind of like Snapchat, Instagram, we would superimpose the props on the guests themselves so they don't have to like be passing around feather boas or masks that have been coughed on and sneezed on by so many people. Um, and then afterwards, when they get the photo, instead of typing in their phone number, their email, they scan a QR code, and that QR code gets into their phone.
Mhm.
And then the guests still have to type
Brennan, you are
in their
blowing my mind right now.
yeah. And the guests still have to
Yeah.
enter in their email or their phone number to get the image, which is good for you because then now you have that lead collection too. And the guests never touched a photo booth whatsoever. So it was a really pivotal moment for Photobooth Supply Co. We could have said, you know what? We're just going to go in hibernation mode, lay off a bunch of staff, and just like wait until the pandemic is over. Or we can get creative. We chose the latter, and it was a big risk on all of our parts. You know, there were definitely some months where we were completely unprofitable, but ultimately we won out, and it ended up being one of the most successful years for our company in 2020 when we very much should have, you know, had completely different results. So yeah, it's been a wild ride.
That is great. I love hearing about the way you solved all these problems. Geez, I was just thinking in my mind, like, I don't know, maybe you ship the photo booth out to a place so they don't have to like have a person bring it out or whatever. And then you're like, so we created virtual booths, so we did, and it was just like boom, 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 boom. So, oh man, that is super interesting to hear about. What were some of the you said that you had some clients who were super successful with it. Can you share like any like big success stories? Like any like details on that sort of stuff?
Yeah, there's so many of them, and I'm not as intimately as involved with it because of our photo booth strategists are the ones that are talking to our customers and training them.
Hmm.
Um, but you hear stories all the time, and it's interesting because we actually find that the people purchasing the photo booth in the midst of the pandemic are actually doing better than some of our older owners who purchased prior to the pandemic because they realize,
Hmm.
you know what, like, hey, I'm going to start this photo business and I'm going to be successful whether or not the environment is going to be conducive to us being fruitful or not. And those are people who got really creative. So you start thinking about shipping photo booths, right? And you're not far from the truth there. Some of the more successful clients who actually were dropping off their photo booth. So what they would
Hmm.
do is they would communicate with, you know, whether it be gyms or supermarkets, hotels, bridal salons, hair salons, etc., and say, hey, I'm going to drop off this photo booth, charge you a monthly fee for it. I usually charge $800 a day, but we're going to charge $1,000 a month and keep it here. So you're getting a massive discount, and then our owners are getting a recurring revenue from it, which is great.
Hmm.
And then a lot of our other owners as well, they just did really well with the hands-free mode. And because it is hands-free and because the instructions are really easy to follow, our owners are doing this drop-off program where they would just drive to the event prior to the guests getting there, set up the photo booth, leave, and then come back and pick it up later because they obviously didn't want to interact with the guests because they wanted to be healthy and safe. And they provided that environment where they have a tool to go there, drop it off, and not be in the presence of anybody and still make money. So
Mhm.
we get things like that all the time. Another cool thing about the photo booth is that you don't really need to own it prior to selling it.
Mhm.
We actually give people free marketing materials prior to purchase. And when you do purchase, you get a ton more. But we've had some owners use our free marketing materials, especially people in the event industry, and they would just make a post on their Facebook, their Instagram, etc. And then just from that, man, they get 4, 5, 6, 10 bookings, and that would already itself
Mhm.
pay for the photo booth. And what they do is something like this: like, hey, I bring this photo booth over to my photography company. I have some wedding clients lined up. The first 10 people that book, I'm going to give you $100 discount or whatever discount they want to throw. And that level of urgency obviously gets people to sign up. And hey, you want to book now? I need a deposit of $200-300. You get 10 of those. That pays off your photo booth, and then you essentially get a free booth. And everything from there is just pure profit. So we hear stories like that all the time, all the time.
Mhm. I love thinking about a way to start making money before you even have made the purchase. Like that's just like crazy talk to me. This is
Yeah,
this is brilliant. I love this. I'm just thinking about this. Like my wife and I, the only time we've ever done photo booth stuff, it was like we literally had somebody there with a camera, a giant softbox, a backdrop, and we both hated doing it so much that we were like, never doing that again. But these ideas, like, oh, a completely hands free thing, or I go, I set it up, and then I leave, these sound amazing to me. These sound like things I'd be very much interested in doing, or especially like the virtual booth. Like all of these things sound so much better to me than like, hey, I'm going to be there and I'm going to have to try to make people laugh the entire night by saying like cheesy one-liner jokes or whatever. And like, oh man, that this sort of like a virtual business, and like we drop stuff off, and like it just to me seems like such a no-brainer. I love all of these ideas. I love the way that you guys have really thought outside the box, because this runs so counter to like what I see the rest of the photo booth industry doing. And it's just incredibly innovative to hear about.
yeah, I appreciate that, and I want to remind everyone too listening that I'm sure most people here are photographers, and I think a photo booth is not just a great way to increase revenue, build value for your business, not trade time for money, like all that stuff that I mentioned, but it also provides an insane value to your customers because you can only shoot so many wedding photos during a day. And for
Hmm.
me, I was like, okay, well, there's 200 people at this wedding. I maybe like have a small percentage get a photo of every single person, right? When you're running around with their chicken, like a chicken with his head cut off during cocktail hour, like, hey, let me take a picture of you. And those are always like super awkward pictures. At least for me, they're awkward pictures, right? Because it's always intimidating being photographed by a
Yeah.
photographer, blah, blah, blah. So 90% of my photos were of the bride and groom, their immediate family, bridal party, right? The photo booth, though, when you bring that to a wedding, it creates an environment that gets the guests excited. It has an environment for them to take pictures of themselves in a really unadulterated, unfiltered manner. So instead of trying to crack those cheesy jokes that you just mentioned, they're making themselves laugh. They're making themselves smile. They're with their closest friends and their families, their loved ones, right? And it's in their best interest to want to take a pity
Hmm.
photo, and they get to see themselves too, so they want to make sure their hair looks good. So when you deliver your photos to the client, you're not just delivering your 600, 700 photos that you took from your DSLR. You're delivering an additional 3, 4, 500 photos, boomerangs, GIFs, videos to that client to help them remember their most precious friends and family on their most important day of their lives. So that value is just, I think, just really priceless. It also kind of saves your ass too if you forgot to photograph somebody. Like, oh, but he's in the photo booth, so you're good. So that's always a nice little cushion for you as well. So yeah, I just want to bring it back as well, it really furthers and completes our mission as photographers. I think a lot of us started this, hopefully, with the goal of capturing and preserving memories. And that's exactly what a photo booth does. And not only just captures and preserves memories, but it creates an environment that people want to do that. I think that's what makes it really special.
Yeah. No, that's great. I know I'm currently talking with one of my clients, and she wants to have one of the two photographers on the day set up at the place where people are entering for the ceremony and take a photo of every couple or family who comes in. And I'm just like, biting my tongue because I just want to be like, please hire a photo booth. Like, you don't, this is going to waste like your second shooter's time. They're not going to be able to go out and like get like the photos that, you said you loved of like guests talking to each other, interacting with each other. Like, these are going to be posed photos of people like looking at a camera. And it's like, in my mind, I'm just like, please, please hire a photo booth. Oh, maybe I just need to
Absolutely.
bite the bullet and get a photo booth that I can start selling to clients. And when somebody
Yeah.
asks a ridiculous thing like that, I can just be like, "We got a photo booth. Don't worry about it."
Yeah. Yeah. And it's something that adds value too, because I think nowadays almost a second shooter is almost like expected at a wedding, right? And I
Mhm,
don't know if it's as easy to upsell, but a photo booth is something that has inherent value, that you can easily just like, hey, you know what? This is actually a great example of this. This brings up the opportunity to upsell the client on it. And why not with so much value? Like, hey, we're going to have a second shooter shoot these organic photojournalistic moments. And our photo booth can capture these more formal pictures, right? Which you're actually going to enjoy more because you can actually take multiple pictures with your guests. Enjoy. You can even have a printout on the spot if you want a photo booth with a print. And this print acts
mhm,
as, or this text message or email acts as a wedding favor for your customers as well. Sorry, wedding favor for the wedding guest, excuse me, as well. So you actually kind of are saving the client some money because the wedding couple doesn't need to spend money on favors, right? Which I know most people probably throw away,
mhm.
but they're not going to throw away a memory that they've taken, with the bride and groom. So
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about the design of your photo booths? Because I just love looking at them. As I said earlier, like they just look sci-fi. Like they don't look like something that you normally see. What was the inspiration behind that?
yeah, I don't know if sci-fi was what I was going for there, but I definitely understand where that definition came from. My goal and my inspiration for design has always been to have form follow function, right? And
Mhm,
when we're designing for this photo booth, we interviewed a lot of people and they mentioned, hey, we want simple, we want easy. And that led us to choose using an iPad for the hardware. And I just heard a bunch of photographers out there yelling at me like, why would you use an iPad? What the heck? That's the front facing camera. That's terrible. Well, yeah, when you compare it to your Sonys and your Nikons, definitely. And don't get me wrong, like I've had a very big attention to detail when I was shooting weddings as well. I've won awards. I've flown to multiple countries to shoot weddings. I get what good photography is, but ultimately, when the wedding couple
mhm,
is hiring a photo booth, they're they're sort of hiring for picture quality, but really what they're wanting is something fun for their guests to engage in, and they want a memory of that fun, right? And I would argue that a seven
mhm,
megapixel front facing iPad camera is totally fine. So that created the brains of the photo booth there. From that point, we said, okay, well, now our owners really want portability. They want something easy, right? You're a wedding photographer. You're already photographing the
mhm.
rings at the same time you're photographing the details. Then you have to coordinate with the bride to do this and this and this. You don't want to be spending 2 hours setting up a photo booth. You also don't want to be spending money hiring an attendant to set up the
Yes,
photo booth too. You want
yes.
a simple, easy to use thing. And when we kept on interviewing our customers, they kept on saying like, "I just want easy. I just want easy." And DSLR is not easy. Hooking a bunch of USBs is not easy. So we decided, hey, well, let's find a carrying case that would fit in any car and you can fly in even, right? And once we made that carrying case, it
Mhm.
had this kind of like rectangular shape to it. So at that point, we just said, okay, what can fit in that shape? And that led us to this racetrack oval design instead of a circular one. Because we found that most of the square cases that would fit a circle were actually like pretty big and would leave a lot of unnecessary space.
Yeah.
So now we got this racetrack thing, and then we had our poles that came in also in that form of the racetrack, and everything just kind of came together from there. And some of the nice bells and whistles at the end were like, hey, you know what? When we're building this thing, we don't need to have any tools. So as a wedding photographer, you're already carrying so much crap to the wedding. If you were to lose one little widget that prevented you from setting up the photo booth, then you can't do your photo booth event anymore. So we said, hey, you know what?
Mhm.
No tools. Just use your fingers. That's it. So when you set it up, it takes about, I've done in 30 seconds, maybe takes people 2 minutes, whatever. Sets up quickly, puts together easily, no tools. You can't mess it up. It's really nice. So yeah, I wish people listening to this could see it. Otherwise, it's hard to follow. But if you go to photoboothsplaco.com, you can definitely
Mhm.
check it out there and see it.
Yeah. Uh, that to me is like everything I want to hear when it comes to something like this. It's easy. You just set it up. It takes 30 seconds to 2 minutes. I mean, if I'm not shooting the wedding, that to me says I roll in 30 seconds before the reception starts. That wouldn't be good for running a business, I know. But you could roll in 30 seconds before the reception starts and just knock it out real quick. And then they come in and you walk away. And I do love the LED lights. Is that what those are? That go
Mm-hmm.
around like as you're saying, like the kind of like racetrack shape of it. Like, is that and they change colors and stuff too. Like it's a really cool look.
Correct. Yeah. Um, yeah, the LEDs are awesome. I think. I mean, there's no reason to not have LEDs. They're just great for branding opportunities, right? Because most people bring photo booths and they're like this big giant black curtain box that people go in and take pictures in private. And ours is an open air experience where everyone can see people taking the pictures and they're interacting with them. They're getting inspired by their poses as well. And the LED is just this focal point where usually the reception is happening at night. So it has this like brightly lit environment that kind of draws people in, kind of like how insects are kind of drawn to that light. Everyone just kind of floods to this area. And you can brand the LEDs too. So let's just say the couple is having a very purple event. You can have the LEDs go purple. You can even have the tap to start screen on the photo booth itself be customized. You can even have the couple's picture on there. Um, and when the guests take a picture
Hmm.
and they email to themselves, it actually goes to a custom proofing site, just kind of like your shoot proof for your Pixie set. It goes to a custom site, but it's built immediately on the spot. So instead of you coming home when you're having
Wow.
your wedding hangover and you have to
Hmm.
plug in your SD cards, call through all the images, upload them, edit them, etc., photo booth, it's done right there and then. Super easy. And that
So
website can
then
be branded for the
the
couple as
iPads that are
well.
Mhm. Yeah.
Very good.
So the iPad that is in the salsa booth, do you people buy that separately, or does it come with the salsa booth, or how does that
Yeah.
work?
The iPad, we actually allow you to purchase your own iPad, whatever you feel like is the
Hmm.
best fit. So you can get the bigger screen ones with LTE if you want to just not deal with internet and have it always be connected. So we give you guys options there.
That was what I was going to ask next was if you guys were supplying the iPads, how do you make decisions about cellular services and stuff?
Yeah.
But that's a very good way to circumvent that whole topic.
Yeah. We
So have you
always
guys had any?
recommend getting LTE
Mhm.
because internet at these venues is always finicky. I mean, you could be doing a wedding at a Ritz Carlton and they have great internet. The next day, you could be doing an event at a barn in the middle of nowhere, and there's no internet whatsoever. And then you have to use your phone to be a mobile
Mm,
hotspot if you have that on your plan. So it's always better to get LTE if you can.
yeah. Yeah, we've run into problems with that kind of stuff with like live streaming this last year, and it's just a headache every time.
Yeah.
It's like, why can't every venue just provide Wi-Fi? It'd make everybody's life so much easier.
Yep.
Uh, so, Do you want to answer some questions from people who listen to the show and like random people on the internet?
Let's do
You got
it.
some time for that? All right,
Yeah.
cool. Let's do some Q&A.
But Steve.
All right, so Zane Naylor from our very own Facebook group asks, and Zane said he attended Photobooth Expo in 2020, where you were one of the presenters. He felt that you came in prepared with new and exciting info, and that you had a great presentation on hiring operators to work your booths. And he was super impressed by the way that Photobooth Supply Company were one of the few brands who came to the trade show floor organized and out the effort, and they put out the effort or they put the effort into their booth that it deserved. And he'd like to know what you think about where photo booths will be heading in the future as like a move toward AR and VR, and in the present moment away from things like physical props.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the compliments. I really appreciate it. We put a lot of effort into everything that we do, and trade shows being one of the few tangible things we do now. It's important that we have a great and fun presence there. So thank you much. In terms of the future of photo booths, it's funny because I feel like we're just getting started. You would be surprised by the volume of interest that we have still with people starting new businesses. If you look at the past 100 weddings that you've shot and really think about how many of those weddings had a photo booth, I almost guarantee you that a majority of them had not had one. And I think that's going to change. I'm very bullish on the fact that I think 100% of not just weddings, but 100% of all events in the future are going to have a photo booth, big or small, right? And part of our mission at Photobooth Supply Co is actually to have a photo booth at every single event. So one of the biggest objections we get is that, oh, I don't want to buy a photo booth. There's too many of them out there. Well, first of all, if you're a wedding photographer, you are already have a huge lost opportunity cost. If you're shooting 30 weddings a year, 30 times 500, that's 15 grand extra a year in your pocket that you can be making right now. And $500 an event is dirt cheap. So, you could be charging $1,000 or whatever, right? So $15,000 a year. Like, what could most people do with an extra $15,000 a year, right? That's a lot of money. That's a Tesla. That could be a mortgage on your home. That could be more money for business equipment, etc. And that's very, very bottom. Most of our owners make around like $71,000 a year, and that's because they branch out to more than weddings, right? They look at their anyone who's attending a wedding. There's family parties that are happening. There's school events. There's school dances. There's galas occurring. There's conferences. There's expos. There's just so much stuff. And with 2021 finally coming to fruition, and vaccines are being out and things are being more open, there's going to be so many more opportunities and so much money being thrown at these events. It's just going to be a little nutty. So very bullish on that. Every gathering will have a photo booth in the future for sure. In terms of like AR and stuff like that, we're continuing to improve and work on those aspects of our booth. But I do think that we're going to hit when we still haven't hit saturation on just regular, even still photo captures yet for photo booths. So there's going to be an interesting market where it's really split. There's going to be an emerging market where every event is going to have a photo booth, and they're going to be fine with just still photos and prints and emails and texting, and that'll still blow people away. And then there's going to be like the more corporate brand activation, a movie premiere, celebrity type events where maybe they might be a little bit jaded by just regular photo and they want something new and different. And they maybe want the AR experience. They want that 3D experience, right? This is not your wedding. It's like, I don't think weddings are going to want this type of stuff. But this is something where like usually a brand or a marketing agency is trying to, convey a message. They're trying to get published in some magazine. They're trying to create this unique experience. So two very different worlds here. But I do think that, they're both going to grow continuously alongside each other. I don't think that the entire market is going to shift to 100% AR, or the entire percent of the market is going to shift back to like, old school printing and photos, I just think as a whole, the entire industry is just going to continue to grow, and it's going to be really, really exciting.
Hmm. So here's my pitch to you then. You're talking about doing this at movies and stuff. So let's say there's a new Transformers coming out. I show up. There's a salsa booth there, or whatever's next down the pipeline. The guacamole booth, the chalupa booth. I don't know what's coming up next, but the next thing's out, the hot new thing. It's got that awesome AR. It's a Transformers movie. I'm in line and I'm like, before I get in to see the movie, I want to fight an AR Transformer. Is that something you can see happening? Can we turn this into a AR video game where people are fighting things and having a little more fun out there?
Man, I think you need to talk to Mark Zuckerberg and Oculus for that one if you want to fight, a Transformer. But
I just want to
for
punch
photo
robots.
booths, we can put you next to a Transformer, or maybe superimpose your face onto one. So that, yeah, absolutely. There's a ton of things, whether the combination of green screen, AR effects, overlays, etc. There's just so many options to really customize these captures. And this is a good opportunity to bring this up, right? Movie company, new Transformers movies coming out. They hire an experiential marketing company, and that experiential marketing company then hires you as a photo booth to do that event, saying, "Hey, how can you create a situation where we create just the most amazing shareable moment, right? Where these celebrities need to be compelled to want to share this, and they'll pay. I kid you not. This is where it gets into almost unbelievable territory. I've seen photo booth rentals in these categories go for like $3,000 to $15,000 for a rental. And the reason why they pay so much is because what if just one celebrity posts on Instagram this capture, right? This one celebrity who's just, night on in town, goes to this movie premiere, posts this without getting paid. They just post it on their own free will. The value of that post, if you actually had to pay them, could be like $1 million or more. So for a $30,000 photo booth, it's chump change. So that's when people want to. There's a few of our photo booth owners doing like 7 figures in revenue, and that's where they're seeing a lot of that money is in the corporate events and the marketing events.
But now on the flip side, looking at it from, a photographer's point of view, they post that photo that they didn't pay you to have the rights to post to their social media. Now you're suing them for 7 figures.
So you win both ways.
Not with a photo booth, but it happened with LeBron James, where he posted a photographer's photo to his Instagram or something and got sued for it.
Yeah, that's actually interesting you bring that up. It's so funny because actually the person who takes the photo booth picture, like when you're pressing it yourself, they actually own the rights to the photo. Interesting, right?
Oh, so what you've done is created a lawsuit machine for photographers to get there. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Well, we have a few ways to go around it. We have the disclaimer screens and, terms and conditions and stuff like that. Yeah. But technically, if you didn't have any of those enabled, whoever's the guest taking the picture, like they literally press their button, they're the actual photographer and they're just using your camera, which is interesting, right? So anyways, it's just a funny fact.
Got another pitch for you, future Photobooths here. Have you thought about bringing in other senses? So people go up, they hit the button to have their picture taken. They don't know this, but there's a squirt gun inside the photo booth, and now it's blasting them with water.
I think we would get sued as a company if we stole photo booths like that. I don't know.
It's like a full Disney experience. Come on.
Oh, geez. Oh, man. Maybe for the next Flipper movie or something like that. Hey, take a picture with Flipper, and then he freaking splashes his tail at you or something like that. Oh, God.
Okay, so LL from a random Facebook group asks, do you have to encourage guests to take dick pics at a photo booth, or is that something that just happens organically?
Oh, it happens organically all the time. What kind of Facebook groups are you posting into?
The worst ones. The absolute worst ones. Do you guys have any like filters or anything that like will keep that kind of stuff out of your like galleries and everything when you're going through this?
You know what? That's we've actually had this feature on the pipeline for a while, but we never needed to pull the trigger on it because there wasn't that much of an urgency. But yeah, like part of your job as a photo booth owner is to go through all the images at the end of the night and make sure that no one has done any nefarious photos, right? So yeah, it happens all the time. I've seen it, whether it be, nip slips or any of that stuff. It's become less prevalent because of the open air nature style of a photo booth. Because if you're doing something,
Yeah.
NSFW, everyone's going to see it. But when you had the enclosed photo booths, oh my God, people were doing all sorts of crazy stuff in there because no one's watching. But yeah, less of a problem now, which is why we haven't like made it as important. But yeah, we had it for a while. I think like, can we somehow like scan? It's almost like a dick pic scanner. Can we search all the images for dicks and see like if we can find anything and delete it? So anyway, it was wild.
It's our eggplant finder.
Yeah, there you go.
Zane had another question for you. He was wondering where you guys get your tracksuits from.
Oh, geez. I forgot. But they're like $30. It's super cheap. Oh, Red Cap. REDKAP, I think. Red Cap. $30. I think they're pretty stylish. And yeah, it's workwear. It's not anything fancy. Like it's not a Banana Republic type thing. $30. It's made for workwear. It comes in all sorts of colors. Great way to stay stylish.
That's awesome. One last question for you from a random Facebook group. This one comes from Julia. She says, hey, I had my photo booth set up in a back room at a wedding, and I think a skunk must have got in there because it smelled horrible afterwards. Just wondering, can I wash it with tomato juice, or will that stain the plastic red?
Oh, jeez. Don't suggest using any sorts of fruits or vegetables on our photo booth for sure. And I'm pretty sure she was making that joke because we call it salsa. And yeah, no, it does not taste good either. So I definitely would not recommend eating our photo booth, putting it inside any condiments. You might get tetanus or other things, and that definitely will void your warranty. So please do not do that.
Do the photo booths, do they take on like smells or anything like that? Like the material science behind it? Is this even a legitimate thing for somebody to be talking about, or no?
You know what? We haven't had photo booths long enough. I would assume rust would develop some sort of odor, but we do powder coat our photo booths, which make them quite rust resistant. I don't know if it's completely rust proof, but it would have to take dozens of years to see that. So no, I don't think so in the short term. Definitely not a concern I would be having.
On record saying that we make the world's #1 stank proof photo booth.
We make the world's #1 most stank proof photo booth. 100%.
I love it.
We got to end on that note. That was the greatest.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sitting down and talking with me for a little bit. Can you let our listeners know where they could go to find you guys and how they could purchase a photo booth of their own?
Yeah. So if you're even remotely interested in increasing your revenue as a photographer, working less, making more, creating some sort of value with your business, we give you a lot of free materials, free guides, teaching you how to book events before you buy, teaching you how to build a 6-figure photo business, all sorts of risk-free stuff that you can just peruse for free. And that's at photoboothsupplyco.com/wedding hangover. And I'm adding the slash here because if you go to that link, it definitely does support this channel. And we love you guys here. We want to make sure that this podcast is continuing to thrive. So go to photoboothsupplyco.com/wedding hangover. Support this podcast and also hopefully support your career as wedding photographers as well to help achieve your goals.
Awesome. Thank you so much. What are your guys' Instagram, Twitters, Facebooks? Do you guys have that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we have all that stuff. I think Instagram might be the best place to go. There's actually a bunch of free stuff on there too. On our highlights, Instagram story highlights.
Nice.
That is Instagram.com/Photobooth Supply Co.
Love it. Thank you so much for giving me some of your time today, Brandon. And I guess have a great rest of your day. It looks really sunny and nice there. I hope you get out there and enjoy that.
Awesome. Sounds good. Hey, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. We make the world's #1 most stank-proof photo booths.
Wedding Photo Hangover was edited this week by Steve Van Elk of Bespoke Tone. Go to Bespoke Tone for all of your photo, video, and audio editing needs.